Yeah, I'm Kim Libreri, visual effects supervisor at both ILM and at LucasArts. Just recently worked on 1313 and helped supervise the piece that we showed at E3.
So what's it been like, first of all, you've obviously been working in industrial light and magic and working in movies for a long time. What's it been like kind of moving into games? What are the differences and similarities?
You know, it's surprisingly not that many differences in terms of how we create the art and how we make the content. The big challenge is, 30 frames a second. We've got to make sure that everything we put in there doesn't blow our budget, and we've got to get it to run real time. It's a game after all. So, that's the bigger challenge. The other thing is that the way movies work is that we're very departmentalized, and each person has their own discipline, and we sort of have a pipeline that gradually puts things together over many weeks to get a final shot into a movie. It could be even many months on certain shots. With this, it's all interactive, so everything comes together at a breakneck speed, and then you can make adjustments in front of your eyes very, very quickly, and which is great, but also it's very easy to step on each other. So there's a lot of sort of orchestration management that you've got to do to make sure all the artists and all the games, the level designers and anybody contributing to the game knows whereabouts they can work and where they can't work at any one time as we're trying to assemble a thing.
I suppose that's a big issue because obviously a lot of the departments you'll be quite similar to the film, but then you've got this whole department that deals with the whole interactivity thing that you have to deal with. That must lead up to some interesting kind of heated debates and stuff.
It's to be honest, most of the people that we brought over from ILM are gamers, so they have at least a passion for what we were doing, and every day we would get everybody on team into what we call a daily session, so that we'd present both gameplay work and the cinematic work and the lighting work all together, so everybody knew what was going on. So any sort of conflicts or any potential for conflicts were sort of diffused in that sort of half-hour session every morning.
And a lot of studios have access to amazing art guys and amazing equipment and all this stuff. But the real advantage here is, of course, they've got kind of ILM like upstairs pretty much. I mean, the advantage of having everything so close and having the actual mocap studio and having all this equipment and talent just round the corner, that must have a profound effect on how quickly things are able to change.
I think it really helps us make a more authentic Star Wars property. When we were building the ships, we'd be like, well, I wonder, we have access to a massive archive library of every ship that we've ever built, every set that's ever been shot for Star Wars, and we can refer to that. But also when we're talking about techniques like, well, how would they have painted the surface on the Millennium Falcon or whatever ship? We can just go and actually talk to the guy that did it. They're still, people are still here all these years later, and when it came to designing the camera work on the cinematic component of this, we brought in an animation supervisor from ILM, our friend Peter Dalton, who worked on Return of the Jedi. So when it comes to, does this feel like a Star Wars camera? Is this one what George would have liked? It's like, yeah, we absolutely know.
And you've also done a lot of interesting stuff with virtual cameras in terms of bringing over stuff you've learned from doing ILM stuff into games. I mean, that's quite new.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. One of the things that we spend a lot of time is during the performance capture sessions, we use real-time virtual cameras in the game engine to be able to visualize what we're doing as we're shooting the thing. So the actors get a context of where they are, the space that they're in, what they're interacting with, and whether their performances are going to work when they have their body actions mapped onto their characters in the game.
Obviously, for Star Wars, this is a pretty big deal because you're going back to really kind of looking at a lot of the tone from the original 3 films and bringing that back in quite a big way. It must be an exciting project for this. I mean, is it interesting to be doing it as part of a game rather than part of kind of a film?
It is. It's actually cool in terms of doing it as a game because you're actually making a world and you're making characters that you can look at from any angle. You can add performances to them. So it feels almost like we're working in virtual reality a little bit.
And also the tech, I mean, was it just purely a case of going, hang on a minute, we've kind of reached a point where it's kind of worth the while of ILM getting involved with this because the technology is getting to the point where it's kind of like earlier maybe it would just been kind of like, it's kind of a waste of our time getting involved with this because we don't have the processing power. Or were there other factors?
No, what you're saying is pretty much true. We did some experiments last year as to what we thought could be done with modern GPUs and modern computers, and it really felt that we can put enough lights in now. We can do global illumination. There's techniques that we've used at ILM for years that we would be able to transplant into our modified version of Unreal. So we were able to work with the LucasArts engineers to customize the lighting tools and the lighting techniques to produce something that's familiar to ILM, so that we can take some of the more game-friendly ILM lidars and animators and put them straight into the engine the way that we do it at LucasArts, and they feel like they're a fish in water at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, are you going to take some stuff back as well in terms of like things you've learned whilst doing the games that you've realised you can apply to movies, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the great things about interactive technology is it allows you to experiment. Traditionally when we make a movie, it can take months to go from beginning of an idea to actually a final shot. In this world, as long as we've got the assets built, you can actually, try a camera angle out, try a performance, try a lighting technique that you would have never done on a movie, just because there's not enough time and you don't want to risk that much budget. Yeah. So it allows a more free-form experimentation in the art.
Yeah, I suppose you don't want to kind of get to Michael Mann 2 years later and him going, "What's this?" We thought we'd just try something. It didn't really work out.
Yeah. No, you don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, so I mean, also, it must be fascinating being able to actually have to work out how to deal with kind of keeping things in the 30 frames a second. Obviously you guys previously, it's like kind of power of the gods almost. You've just got supercomputers, you can do what you want.
Yeah, so in visual effects, we tend to, we try to contain our renders so they're as efficient as possible. But if in the last couple of weeks, something doubles its budget in terms of how long it takes, it's not a showstopper. We put it on the render farm and it does its job and we get a shot. You can't do that. You can't go, oh, well, these few frames in the game are going to run at 10 frames a second. You just can't do that. You have to run at 30. So it adds an extra dimension to the problem solving that, we'll establish the techniques that we want. We'll try them. They'll be over budget initially. And then we have to work with the engineers like, what's the optimization? How do we not calculate the pixels that we don't see or have some optimization that produces a visual result that works for us, yet it's still 30 frames a second? That's actually one of the better challenges on the project. It's been cool.
And one of the things I think is really coolest about this is the way that it hasn't just been kind of like, right, we're going to do this because it's going to make money. I get the impression that somebody's gone around and said, all right, maybe let's do a video game thing. Who wants to do that? And it seems like it was just a case of all the guys from ILM are doing this. Seem to be people who are like, I like games. I'll get involved with that.
Well, this game's a very important game for LucasArts. They want to make the best product they possibly can, and it's very, very important the gameplay is fantastic on the game. So Dom, who's our creative director, can focus on the gameplay components and not have to worry about the visuals or some level of compromise in the visual. If he wants an explosion that looks awesome in the background or in the foreground, wherever he wants it, he now can ask, and he knows he's going to get that level of quality because he's dealing with an ILM team that are sort of part of his team now. So it frees him up to be sort of even more ambitious on the gameplay and not have to worry about the visuals or the technology on the visuals.
It must be quite cool as well because you've literally, you guys have just stepped straight into it, and most of you would be like, oh, we've not really done some games before, but you've just literally just walked in and instantly become probably one of the best visual teams in games.
It just goes to show that the DNA at ILM is pretty damn good, and combined with what the LucasArts guys know and how awesome the team is there, it's like, yeah, we feel pretty good about it.
Quite rightly. I mean, it's just do you think this is going to be the first step of something really interesting in terms of like, if it's a success and you guys end up thinking, we really love doing that. Do you think we could see like a kind of a section of ILM popping up which is just purely going to deal with video game stuff?
I think that we'd like to always cycle people around. Like, the more experiences somebody has as an artist or a technologist, the better that they get at their job. So I see this happening a lot in the future. I think interactive technology is going to have a profound effect on making films. I think that you're going to see a new art form evolve that is this sort of hybrid world between the two, between the world of movies and the world of games. So, yeah, I think it'll continue.
Seems like we've got an exciting few years ahead of us. Well, thanks very much for your time.
Thanks a lot.